Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, the Palestinians present a tougher UN draft resolution on statehood that could come up for a vote at the Security Council within days. The so-called Islamic State group claims responsibility for a suicide attack that killed 16 people north of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. The Ukrainian president intends to meet with Russian, German and French leaders on January 15th in a move to solve the crisis in his country. And Indonesia confirms the debris and bodies found in waters near the Borneo island were from the crashed Air Asia flight. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah today sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the Speaker of the Libyan Parliament, Aguila Saleh Isa, on the occasion of his country's Independence Day. In his cable, His Highness the Emir wished the Libyan official everlasting well-being and Libya's stability and progress. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency the Speaker of the Libyan Parliament, Aguila Saleh Isa, on the occasion of his country's Independence Day. His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Hamd Al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable of congratulations. Arab UN delegations endorsed a Palestinian proposal to forge a peace deal with Israel within a year and end Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories by late 2017, despite fierce Israeli and US opposition. A timing for a UN vote on a measure that faces almost certain defeat is unclear. Our correspondent in Gaza, Majd Al-Wahidi, has the story.
The final draft of a statehood resolution to the United Nations on Monday night, calling for a peace deal with Israel within a year and an end to occupation of Palestinian territories by the end of 2017.
We will submit the original draft resolution to the Security Council, hoping to conclude the vote by tomorrow or the day after, before the end of the year. The resolution specifies a Palestinian state on the 1967 lines, with East Jerusalem as capital, calls on a solution to all core issues, including refugees, in accordance with the relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions.
Jordanian UN ambassador, the sole Arab representative in the Council, told reporters all Arab delegations endorsed the Palestinian proposal, and the Jordanians and Palestinians would consult on the best time to cast the vote in the Security Council.
There are other issues concerning the prisoners, water, settlements, and the illegitimate wall that was condemned by the International Court. And we've also recommended that both our leadership will be discussing together to find the best way and the best timing to vote in the Security Council.
On the other hand, US rejected the latest Palestinian push, saying it was not constructive and failed to address Israel's security needs. Observers say US, Israel's closest ally, is expected to veto the draft resolution.
The American veto is expected. However, the problem is not in any vote, but in remaining persistent and focused on our right to get a Palestinian state and votes in the Security Council. I believe the US will raise its veto, but this veto should push us towards success and gaining more allies and support.
9 Security Council votes are needed to adopt a resolution. Several European parliaments have adopted non-binding motions calling for recognition of Palestine and reviving peace efforts. In all cases, it remained unclear if the Palestinians would seek a quick vote or hold off until January 1st, when 5 new members with a pro-Palestinian stance joined the Security Council. Despite international pressures and high possibilities of defeat, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has warned that in case of failure, he will cut his ties with Israel and sue the government for its crimes and occupation in the International Criminal Court. Majd Al-Wahidi, Kuwait TV, Gaza.
Members of the struggling Palestinian Unity government met in the Gaza Strip for a first meeting months after it was formed in the hope of reviving efforts to end years of bitter political division. Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah and the remaining ministers took part via video conference from the West Bank. The Palestinian rivals Fatah and Hamas agreed last spring to form a government of apolitical technocrats, but the government is still not properly functioning due to deep political differences. As dozens of public sector workers protested to demand salaries which they haven't received for months, officials said that the government is facing many challenges and was working to resolve the issues raised by the public sector workers. The so-called Islamic State group claimed responsibility for a suicide attack on a funeral tent north of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, that killed 16 people and wounded 34 others. The claim was made in a statement posted on Twitter account frequently used by the extremist group. Yesterday's attack near the town of Taji targeted the funeral of the father of 2 members of pro-government militia that the IS frequently targets. In a separate incident, militia commander retired Brigadier General Abbas Hassan Jabr was killed by a sniper's bullet during fighting with the IS militants in the town of Duluiya, north of Baghdad. Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi issued a statement hailing Jabr as one of Iraq's heroes and vowing that his death would increase the determination to liberate all Iraq. The Pentagon said today that the U.S. military carried out an airstrike on southern Somalia that targeted a senior leader of the militant group Al-Shabaab. The attacks by the U.S. follow a series of military setbacks that Al-Shabaab has suffered since African Union-backed Somali government troops forced the militants to withdraw from Mogadishu in August of 2011. The strike also comes 3 months after manned U.S. aircraft and drones killed Ahmed Abdi Godani, the leader of the Al-Qaeda-linked militant group that has waged an insurgency against Somalia's government since 2006. The main suspect in the 2008 Mumbai attack, Zakirur Rahman Lakhvi, appeared in court in Islamabad amid tight security today after he was rearrested by Pakistani police. Lakhvi is one of 7 suspects being tried by Pakistan in connection with the attacks, which killed 166 people and seriously damaged relations between long-time rivals Pakistan and India. After a judge granted him bail earlier this month, there were concerns that he would be freed, but police arrested him on another case. A police inspector told the court that someone had filed a complaint at a police station on the Islamabad outskirts, saying that Lakhvi had abducted his brother-in-law 6.5 years ago. The judge granted a police request for time to investigate the accusation, extended Lakhvi's detention for 2 days. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko said that he hopes to meet Russian, German and French leaders next month in a bid to speed up the peace process. Poroshenko told a news conference in Kiev that the level and the intensity of the diplomatic dialogue makes him feel optimistic, affirming the need for a resolution as the conflict with the pro-Russia rebels takes a significant toll on Ukraine's economy. Poroshenko added that he was ready to declare martial law if the rebels renew their offensive. The planned summit, scheduled for January 15th in the Kazakhstan capital of Astana, would come months after the previous round of talks in Milan, which brought scant progress. Greece's Conservative Prime Minister Antonis Samaras requested today that Parliament be dissolved following the failure by lawmakers to elect Greece's new president after 3 rounds of voting. During a meeting with the country's President Carlos Papoulias, Samaras expressed his disappointment with the decision to call early elections, accusing the opposition Syriza party of acting for its own gain. An opinion poll published late overnight gave the anti-bailout Syriza party a 3-point lead over the Conservatives, indicating that neither leading party could govern without forming a coalition. According to sources, the snap general election has been called for January 25th. Greek officials said that 43 survivors of the Norman Atlantic ferry fire were brought to Athens in a military transport plane. At least 10 people were killed after the ferry travelling from Greece to Italy caught fire on Sunday night. The evacuation of the ferry was completed with the rescue of 427 people, including 56 crew members. Authorities said the discrepancies in the ferry's manifest make it impossible to know how many people, if any, may still be missing. Meanwhile, the Italian Navy was continuing search and rescue operations around the ferryboat, with a ship carrying 39 survivors heading to a southern Italian port. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo held a news conference today in Surabaya where he offered condolences to those who lost loved ones in the AirAsia plane crash. AirAsia flight QZ8501 crashed into the Java Sea on Sunday during a flight from Indonesia to Singapore with 162 people on board. It's not clear what brought the plane down. However, the last communication indicated the pilots were worried about bad weather. As bodies and debris were seen floating in Indonesian waters earlier in the day, Widodo said the focus is now on the retrieval of the remaining bodies in what he called a massive search and rescue operation that was due to begin tomorrow. Malaysia's worst flooding in a decade has forced nearly 250,000 people from their homes, with the government coming under renewed fire for its perceived slow response. The National Security Council said that exceptionally high water levels had cut off rescuers from relief centres as the death toll rose to 21 across the northeast. As most criticism was directed at Prime Minister Najib Razak for his absence, the opposition denounced the government's reluctance to declare a state of emergency. Sources said the flooding is the worst in 3 decades in Malaysia, and there are fears that conditions might deteriorate further, with heavy rain expected to continue until the weekend. Asian stocks were mostly lower today as concern about Greek politics and the shaky Russian ruble dented confidence in the global economy. The Tokyo stock market marked the closure of the year with a drop in its benchmark while it was a similar picture with the South Korean stock. In Europe, some of the gloom was likely to spread to European bourses as the benchmarks of Britain, Germany and France were seen opening down. Greek bonds and shares fell after its parliament failed to approve a new president, forcing the government to call early elections that could bring more economic turmoil. The main price indices of the Kuwait Stock Exchange were negative by the end of today's trading session, with the price index dropping by 116 points to reach 6,510 points. The KSX 15 index also lost 0.21 points and settled at the level of 1,061 points. The share of the National Consumer Holding Company was the top gainer of the day, while that of the Al Qurain Holding Company suffered the biggest loss. For channels to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. The Palestinians present a tougher UN draft resolution on statehood that could come up for a vote at the Security Council within days. The so-called Islamic State group claims responsibility for a suicide attack that killed 16 people north of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. The Ukrainian president intends to meet with Russian, German and French leaders on January 15th in a move to solve the crisis in his country. And Indonesia confirms the debris and bodies found in waters near the Borneo island were from the crashed Air Asia flight. Thank you for joining us.